I'm going to do a quick overview of what I watched in the past week because it was interesting. So overall, I watched 9 films. I watched a range of different films. I started off the week with Black Swan. Yeah, it was very interesting, very gripping. I gave it 5 stars on Letterboxd. Then on Wednesday, I watched 2 films. I watched Pretty Woman and Roman Holiday. I gave both of them 5 stars, but I would probably give Pretty Woman a lower score. It was okay, but the main appeal to it is that it's iconic. But Roman Holiday knocked it out of the park for me. I'm gonna say that's one of my favorite films I've ever watched. It's gonna be up there, I believe, in my top 4 at the end of this process. I absolutely loved it. Moving on Thursday I watched Kill Bill Volume 1. Interesting. I love actions, I love like kind of revenge stuff, so that was interesting to watch. But I gave it 3.5 stars. And on Friday, I watched Pulp Fiction, the iconic Pulp Fiction, another Quentin Tarantino movie. I'd probably give that 4, actually. It was definitely interesting, it was entertaining. I see where the hype is, but also it's not the best movie I've ever watched. On Saturday, I watched Sabrina, second Audrey Hepburn movie. That was very fun. I wouldn't rank it as high as Roman Holiday, but it was a great movie. And I put it at 4.5 stars, so yeah, it wasn't that full 5 stars that Roman Holiday is. But it was very entertaining because it's Audrey Hepburn and she is just a romantic legend. Then I also watched City Lights, gave that 5 stars because that was incredible. Charlie Chaplin, so funny. I laughed the whole way through. It was my first silent movie, so that was great. And I finished off the day with watching Crazy Stupid Love. This was the first film that I've rewatched in this process. The rest of them have been like brand new films to me. I mainly rewatched this because it was recommended to me by John, saying that it was one of his favourite. The way kind of these two stories come together and you don't suspect that they're intertwined, but they are. And then I finished the week off with Inception on Sunday. I really enjoyed that, to be fair, mainly because it was the first movie I've watched on Blu-ray this process, and probably will be the only one. It was a very mind-bending movie. I think the effects were really, really cool, which I really appreciated. Now, what I've kind of concluded this week is that I absolutely love 1950s movies and the black and white movies. They are just made completely different. They are the origin of film, of course, and you could say the golden era. They are the golden era of Hollywood and filmmaking. The stories were on peak. There was not really remakes of old stuff. It was just original. So I think what I've come to the conclusion of, and what I'm going to probably through this process come to the conclusion of, is just because a movie is named great doesn't mean it has to be your favourite, doesn't mean you have to necessarily enjoy it more than another movie. And that's something I definitely want to explore, because I think we put such high standards on these big movies, like Quentin Tarantino ones, Christopher Nolan's, all these long artistic movies, and I haven't really watched, I haven't watched loads to compare to, but I definitely found myself enjoying an Audrey Hepburn movie more than I found myself enjoying a long drawn out movie. But that is something I'm gonna have to learn through this process. And ultimately, film is subjective. Just because a film is greatly made, it's beautiful, and it's got the best cast and the best cinematographers and directors, doesn't mean it has to be your favourite, doesn't mean it's the most enjoyable thing, because sometimes they can be very boring and not really, you don't learn anything or take anything away from it. So yeah, it's just comparing and seeing what works for you and what's your favourite. Don't get me wrong, I did enjoy watching Pulp Fiction and Kill Bill, but would I put them as my favourite movies? Not necessarily. So obviously I also started looking a bit more into the history of film, and already this week I've watched a few historic older films. I've watched Charlie Chaplin from the 1930s, I've watched the 1950s, I've gone to the 1990s, which isn't that long ago, but and I've also watch one that's from my era, you know, the 2010s. So yeah, I've already kind of had a range of stuff. What I've also noticed is that the way that I'm watching films has definitely changed. I was very indecisive and I kind of had a special way to watch films, but now I've been forcing myself to watch set films. So I'm already kind of combating the indecisiveness, but I'm also forcing myself to watch films that I want to watch but like would always put off. But we're moving on to week 2 now, and I'm going to be studying film history a bit more and how to analyze films. So that is probably everything I can like overview from week 1 of the 30 days. It's been very enjoyable.